Hey, we want to welcome you back to another episode of the AWM NFL podcast. My name is Riccardo Stewart, and I'm joined with my friends Zach Miller, Jeff Locke, and Sam Acho. And we are starting a series in the podcast. And since it's tax time, we're going to be talking a lot about taxes. But before we do, guys, I got a couple questions for you guys. Like just this week alone, all right? We just got back from the combine. We're kind of hitting things running. What's one thing that you're just looking forward to or preparing for our current clients right now? Zach, you start.
I'll jump in. I'm not looking forward to it, but it is what we're doing is all the tax documents, all the gathering of information, gathering of all those forms. It's a pain, but as we'll talk about here in a bit, paying the least amount in taxes is something we want to do here. So doing that right now.
I think for me, all of us on this call, we got meetings coming up with our current NFL clients. So we're doing a lot of prep around that. We're scheduling travel, trying to get face-to-face as much as possible in the off season when kind of in between vacations. That's kind of what we're scheduling around with our guys coming back from overseas. So that's what I got going on that I look forward to.
Sam, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. So, you got shows you're doing on ESPN. You got the work that you're doing with us, with our current clients and so forth. Instead of what you're doing, if there were a song that would be the theme song of your week, what's playing in the background of your week this week?
Well, this song has been playing in the background of the last few weeks, and the song is called Seasons by Hillsong United. And it's this idea of how life comes and goes in seasons, and how you may plant a seed in the winter and it doesn't grow until later and all these things, or a seed may die in the winter and it grows later. And so that's kind of been what my story has been, this idea of seasons, and thinking about a bunch of the guys we work with, our current clients, even prospects, are in the off season. And so this idea of, okay, what do you do in the off season or your current season or a different season of life you're going through some kind of transition? So Seasons for me is the song that's been playing in the background of this season of life.
Dang, that's crazy because you said Hillsong United, a worship song. Similar to me, mine is Nipsey Hussle, which is I'm getting ready to go to LA for several days to meet with some clients and some prospects and so forth. So grinding all my life, let's get it. You know what I mean? So it's a season of grinding all my life. So let's jump into this. Okay, we talk about this. You heard it said that there are two things that are undefeated: death and taxes. Okay. We're not going to talk about death today, but we are going to talk about taxes. And so this is how I do with my kids. And this is not unique to me. I understand that. So when I first start learning how much NFL players and people that are in that highest tax bracket were getting out of their taxes, I'm like, okay, how do I continue to teach this to my own kids right now? So we go to In-N-Out and we get their fries. It's an easy way to do it. And I say, okay, how much money do you want to have? Do you want to have as much money as me and mom? Yes. Whoa, wait. Or do you want to have like Patrick Mahomes type money? And of course, they're like, nah, forget what you guys got going on. I want that Patrick Mahomes kind of money. I'm like, perfect. So I take 40 to 50% of their fries and goes, these are daddy's fries now. Like, what? No. You got to pay toll to the troll. In this case, I'm the troll. And just begin to talk about what you think you have is not what you have. When our guys see or people see the ticker and what an athlete signed, that's not exactly what goes in their pocket, because we got to realize the government is going to be able to get theirs. And so, Sam, let me start with you. Somebody who's coming out of the University of Texas, you know what I mean? Dallas's finest. When did you begin to realize, like, wait a minute, what I quote unquote make is not what I'm going to get in my pocket? When did you know the tax man was going to get his?
I knew it when he got his. I found out when I got my signing bonus. So I came out during a lockout, the NFL lockout 2011. It was when I got drafted to the Arizona Cardinals, and there was a lockout. So I got drafted, and then it was like, hey, you can't come to the facility. There's this kind of deal where the NFL players versus the league were trying to figure out, hey, what are our terms going to be? And finally, it was a day before we reported to training camp. And I went to the bank. I got my check. I think I got it in the mail or something. And it was like half of what I thought it was going to be. Like I saw a number, then I saw a different number. And I'm like, whoa, what happened to the rest of it? And so that's when I really realized from a physical standpoint that, oh, wow, Uncle Sam, it ain't me, Uncle Sam, but like somebody is taking a lot of my money. And so, you may learn about taxes, although oftentimes even in college, we didn't really learn about taxes. or you may hear about taxes, but until you get that experience, it was this visceral deal of, whoa, what they said I got wasn't actually what I got. Yeah. And so it was disorienting in some ways. And I wouldn't say I had to make that many adjustments, because I'm not gonna lie. After every single week when the check came, once again, there was the same issue of like, hold on, how come this is like half of what I thought it was gonna be, or at least what it looked like up top. So that's when I realized when those checks were getting cashed.
Well, and most guys who are coming out of the draft, they're usually given advice. Here's what you should do with your finances, and here's what you should do with your taxes. Either their agent or somebody's telling them. And what was like the kind of general advice that you received, Sam, which is probably the same as most of our guys received. And what was that?
Well, a lot of the advice I got was twofold. One, the initial advisor that one of my teammates had went with said, hey, you should come with him. I didn't really side fully with him, but I didn't get any real tax advice from that person. So it was kind of left to me to figure it out. That was the first response I got when it came to taxes. And that's, as I started to dig deeper and ask more questions, the response I got was, well, we don't do taxes, that's separate, and we want to make sure to keep that separate. But I'm like, okay, but why? And then I'm getting charged separately, but how are you getting your percent? It just didn't make sense. And so all I heard, at least early on, was, hey, first, we don't know much about it. Then it was, hey, well, we don't do taxes, you should have that separate, which I still, after years, I'm like, hey, but why? I can never get a straight answer.
Yeah. Well, this is when I plug in if this were like the genesis of a 30 for 30 story, like the music would play and I would say, what if I told you, fill in the blank, right? What if I told you I knew somebody who listened to that advice, had an advisor on one hand, and then a separate CPA during their taxes on the other hand? And what if I told you this player played 8 years in the NFL? What if I told you he played in 2 Super Bowls? He won one he regretfully lost. What if I told you that this person lost out on over $1 million, maybe $2 million in opportunities of taxes? And then what if I told you this person was Zach Miller, and then I asked him a question, explain what I just talked about, Zach?
Yeah, so I mean, me doing the CFP, I went back and looked at the game tape. I was an NFL player for 8 years. I was in the highest tax bracket for 8 years. I was told, hey, let's keep my CPA separate from my investment guy. All that really did was leave a ton of money on the table that I overpaid in taxes to about $2 million. And that's going to be even worse because that's money you can never go back and get, whether it's putting in, like we'll talk about later, is like a Roth IRA or an individual 401k. You could never go back in time and go get that money back that you could have done the tax planning for. And then not all income is treated the same. So I didn't understand different buckets of income, whether that's your wages from your team, your salary from your team, that's different than investment income. And then when you get to investment income, that's even different. There's preferred rates of investment income, which are taxed lower. You think Warren Buffett, he's famous saying that he pays less tax than his secretary. There's that capital gains rate, all those lower tax rates. And then there are those higher rates. Think like interest and ordinary dividends. Those are all paid at a higher rate. So I went back, looked at the game tape, $2 million I would have saved if I would have done things with the information I had now.
Well, there's a few things that you said there that I always like to echo. $2 million is a lot of money that you lost out on. Our people might want to know, how much money did you guys all pay in taxes? Just a little sidebar. Sam, do you know how much roughly you paid in taxes while playing as an NFL player?
Man, Jeff looked it up online and gave me a number. I don't want to believe that number, but it was a lot. It was in the M's. I'm like, it's crazy. I'm still like, yeah. So anyways, yeah, it was a lot.
Hey,
a lot of money.
I was a
when you
punter.
You in the M's, you taking L's.
Yeah, I was a punter in the NFL for 5 years. Didn't get as many years as these guys, and I'm in the M's. Right, so we all paid a lot in taxes on this call.
Yeah, mine was about 14 million in taxes that I paid. So with big numbers, big contracts, big money, that's more money that you should be paying attention to. And it's really hard to get that. It took me a long time to get it. You're in your 20s. You just don't understand. There's just levels to the tax code and being able to minimize that as much as possible. But it's painful to know that, especially when I could have done better. I could have blocked better on this player. I could have caught that pass. That's those opportunities you just can't get back.
So just a little bit of teaching moment. So let me go down to the professor, Jeff. Okay, so all of our guys who are listening to this are all guys who are going in the draft, NFL players. They have to understand income. And there's kind of 3 sources of ways in which they're going to get income So whether it's W-2, 1099, and then even their investments, can you break those things down, those three ways, and what they actually mean?
Yeah, so we all think of it in terms of three buckets. Simplest, bucket one is what we call W-2 income. If you're in the NFL, this is exactly what Sam talked about, right? You get paid from the team and taxes are coming out before it hits your account, right? So you see in your checking account the after effect, and you're like, dude, where's the rest of my money? Okay, so that's bucket one. That's W-2. That's what most people in America get paid like that, W-2, right? Bucket two is 1099. So anyone on the call thinking about NIL income, or like for us on the call in the NFL, when we got our NFLPA licensing checks, right? That's 1099 income. That means taxes have not been withheld yet, but you're still going to owe tax on what you got in that 1099 endorsement income bucket. The third one that Zach just touched on, is the investment income bucket. And within investment income, there's different layers. As Zach mentioned, there's some types of investment income that get taxed at a lower rate, right? The government gives you breaks if you do certain types of investments. There's other types of investment income that get taxed at higher rates, right? Think about interest coming off of a bank account, or even like rental real estate income. That's going to get taxed at a slightly higher rate than everything else. So those are the three main big buckets to always keep straight when you're thinking about your income coming in the door.
Okay, just kind of staying in that same lane when it comes to investments.
Yeah.
So taxes and investments. Zach, since you know this really, really well, are there certain investments where you mentioned the line already that Warren Buffett said that he pays less in taxes than his secretary? Are there certain investments that we should be thinking about as NFL players that are just more tax efficient given the tax bracket that we're in?
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I went back and looked at my tax return, and you can do this. You can look to see on your front page of your 1040, the very first page of your tax return, if you're getting income that is interest, ordinary dividends, and that's showing up on your tax return while you're an NFL player in the highest tax bracket, you're not maximizing the amount of money you have at the end of the day in your pocket. So having that money, you can get that when you're done playing. Like when I was done playing, I dropped to between the 7 and like 14% average tax rate, depending on the year. And that's way better than paying 40% plus with federal and state as a player. So if anyone is looking at how their taxes are done now, any of that income that's taxed at basically a really high rate, the same rate as your salary from your NFL team, you want to defer that out into the future. So we say, turn that faucet off as a player. You don't actually want income. You have way more than enough income as a player. You don't want income. Once you're done playing and you're like, hey, I need to replace these NFL paychecks, boom, turn that back on when you're in that more favorable tax rate.
That picture right there and that image is, so we all get this, that's something we all use. That spigot that's in the front of the house, hey, water's in there, but boom, you don't want that filtering through that tax bracket. But when the time, like Zach said, when it lowers, we can do it. Sam, I'll tell you this, or I'll ask you this. What was just some of the best advice that you received in terms of taxes, or maybe even not so best advice?
The best advice I received, this is before learning about AWM and multifamily office and family office and having it all together. The best advice I received, honestly, when I was a player was, whatever you think you got or you think you signed for, cut it in half and just plan on that. So let's say you signed a $5 million contract, and let's say it's $5 million guaranteed. Well, just expect to have about 2.5 or maybe 3 million that's actually yours. Oh, let's say you signed a $10 million contract. I keep on going to what's guaranteed, because oftentimes look at those contracts, not all is guaranteed, but whatever that amount that's actually guaranteed, whether it's in a signing bonus, right? Let's say you got 30 million to sign. Well, it's not really 30 million. It's actually closer to like 15 or 20. And so that, and depending on where you live, et cetera. And so that was the best advice, because it just helped change my frame of reference before even changing the frame of reference of those around me of, hold on. All that you're seeing me sign for on that ticker, number one, it may not all be guaranteed. That's part one. Part two, even the part that is guaranteed, I'm not seeing all that. I'm only seeing right around half, just that was the advice I got when I was playing. And so that helped me brace for what was to come, of this idea of, people talk about the more you have to worry about. But that tax piece of, oh, wow, that 1 million or 5 million or 10 million or 3 million ain't 3 million. It's really 1.5, maybe closer to 2.
That's good. One more question, Jeff. When we meet with guys, draft guys who are coming into the NFL or guys who have come to us who have already been in the NFL, who've kind of already been through this process, when we look at their returns and we look at their finances, what are some of the common things that you see that are missing?
Yeah, so Zach already mentioned one, which is we look at the front page of their tax return and see all these types of investments spitting off certain types of income. We're like, might not be the right timing to have those type of things spitting off and increasing your total taxable income. The next thing we see, and we'll talk about this in the next episode, is just the wrong account types, right? We don't see a Roth IRA. We don't see an individual 401k. We might see a SEP IRA, but it should actually be an individual 401k instead. And we don't see a donor advised fund when we know that person might actually be charitably inclined and wanting to give back. So those are three where we're like, we can pretty much calculate the amount lost to taxes over a certain number of years just by not seeing those account types right off the bat.
Yeah, that's good. Well, in short, as you guys know, in conclusion, there's a lot we could talk about with taxes. Some of the things that you can expect to hear us talk about, Jeff said it is wrong or bad investments as it relates to your taxes. We'll talk about the jock tax and what does it look like that I'm playing in these multiple different states and how I'm taxed, and then what accounts should be open in order to have it deferred or at least to mitigate some of my taxes. How do I get to the point where, like Warren Buffett, I play less than my secretary? Let's assume that you have a secretary. And so we're looking forward to talking to you guys more about tax strategies and what's the best way to enter in this conversation as somebody who's in the highest tax bracket. And so if you have any questions or things you want to hear on the next several podcasts, the best thing that you should do is text us at 602-989-5022. Again, text us at 602-989-5022. Until then, we'll see you guys soon.
The information in this podcast is educational and general in nature and does not take into consideration the listener's personal circumstances. Therefore, it is not intended to be a substitute for specific individualized financial, legal, or tax advice. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a final decision.